This is Welsh ASMR 82. Hey, how you doing? So this is an ASMR video about football, so it's meant to relax you, maybe even help you fall asleep. So I'm going to read out the Premier League results from Saturday the 29th and Sunday 30th. With shockingly only 2 more weekends of Premier League football until the World Cup. Some really important results, excellent performances, surprising outcomes. So let's jump right in. I hope you enjoy the video. Okay, we'll start with Liverpool. Okay, so I was a little bit surprised by this. I watched the match. I could kind of see it coming. It's the same Liverpool as always this season, apart from probably in the Champions League. They play well enough, and they look like they're going to score loads, and then they don't, and they end up drawing or losing. So Rodrigo opened the goal scoring on the 4th minute with a mistake from Alisson. He just fell over, and Mohamed Salah got them back into the match. At that point you thought, well, they're probably going to get a second or a third year, particularly the way that Leeds have been defending recently, like last weekend against Fulham. But no, Somerville scored on the 89th minute. I think it's his second goal in as many games. And yeah, they, you couldn't really fault them. They were organised in defence, and they looked really dangerous on the break. And it was just one of those rage quit moments on FIFA where you're playing it, you're like, this would never happen. But actually it does. So yeah, 2-1 to Leeds, well done. Okay, next one is Fulham against Everton. Both teams have been really improved recently, so I think probably a 0-0. It doesn't seem that odd a result. Everton have been playing really well. Let's just look at the lineups for a second. Yeah, they started Mitrovic up front again. He didn't manage to score, unfortunately. And for Everton, Iwobi has been playing brilliant football, absolutely brilliant football. I think they sort of switched him into a central attacking midfielder position, and he's doing absolutely brilliantly. But he couldn't provide any assists in this particular game. 0-0 between Fulham and Everton. Brentford needed a result at home after the previous weekend's 4-0 loss away to Aston Villa. Wolves themselves losing 3-0, was it, or 4-0 against Leicester, because they both had a really bad weekend last weekend. When you want to come back from that, a win is great, but a draw is really important. So I think both sets of fans and teams will be okay with a draw. Brentford probably at home would prefer to win against Wolves, but oh gosh, Diego Costa got a red card in the 97th minute. He's he's an enigma, isn't he? He's absolutely an enigma. Ruben Neves, who's rumoured to be in quite a lot of people's, even Barcelona's. He's on Barcelona's radar for the winter transfer. Ben Mee with the goal for the home team. 1-1. Fair result. So Southampton, every single time Crystal Palace play at home, I always say Crystal Palace are really difficult to beat at home. Bearing in mind that Southampton are the only team to have got a draw with Arsenal this season, you'd think that on the back of that they would come into this match really confident. But Crystal Palace are really difficult to beat at home, I'm going to say it again. And it's going to keep them in the Premier League, because their away form isn't great, but they can beat anyone at home. So Edouard with another good goal on the 38th minute, and Southampton unable to score. Did my favourites play? Did Eze? Yeah, Eze played, came off in the 63rd minute for Jordan Ayew. And Zaha was playing as well. So yeah, they had a really good result there. Okay, so this was a mixed bag because Bournemouth scored 2, were winning 2-0. And then away from home, after their dismal form recently, Tottenham managed to score 3. So I was happy for Kiefer Moore, the Welshman up front, man of the match performance. But it's good to see Tottenham just actually attacking. If you're a Spurs fan, then let me know if you agree, but I've been so bored by their play recently. It's just too defensive. I think it's even more defensive than when Jose Mourinho was there, which is saying something. And again, from my Welsh point of view, it's nice to see Ben Davies scoring a goal. He's had a couple of bad games for Spurs recently, and that will give him some confidence. So yeah, it was a 3-2 down in Bournemouth. Tottenham really needed that. Bournemouth will be quite gutted, being 2-0 up and losing it from that point. The curse. So I've been saying that Brighton and Hove Albion have been dropping. Their form has been terrible. You'll see, well, not terrible actually. Their form has worsened since losing Graham Potter, obviously. And of course, Graham Potter, where did he go? He went to Chelsea. So he goes to Brighton, trying to beat his old team, gets absolutely thumped. I think, is it one of the only losses he's had since being Chelsea manager? I think it might be. But the crazy thing about this match, look, 2 own goals. So Trossard scores again, second game in succession at least. Then Loftus-Cheek on goal, Chalobah on goal, Kai Havertz scored for Chelsea. Sorry, motorbike going past. And Pascal Gross scored on the 92nd minute. So, yeah, just a very humbling defeat from Chelsea. Brighton really needed that to get back in the groove, stop the rot. All round surprising result. But, yeah, interesting in the fact that it's Graham Potter's old team. Talking about big results. So Newcastle, we'll see the table shortly. Newcastle doing extremely well. I've forgotten how many they've won in a row now. It's something like, I want to say 7. I might be wrong. Put it in the comment section if you know. So Callum Wilson with a penalty deep into the first half. Stoppage time. Callum Wilson again on the 56th. Surely he's got to go on the plane to Qatar. Joe Linton continues his excellent comeback from being a laughingstock, as does Miguel Almiron. Scored again. I've lost count. I think he's something like 6 in 6 or 5 in 5. It's either 5 goals in 5 games or 6 goals in 6 games. And he's looking world class as well. So, yeah, good for him. Kieran Trippier, man of the match. 4-0. So, you know, a massive shame for Aston Villa after they thumped Brighton with their interim manager last weekend. But Newcastle are back to being a very entertaining team and enjoyable to watch. Okay, last one for Saturday before we look at Sunday's results. My friend Mr. Kevin De Bruyne scores the only goal. I haven't seen it. I heard it's a lovely free kick. And I think Leicester, compared to how they were conceding goals for fun at the start of the league season, they've done really well to, albeit at home, to keep Man City scoring to a minimum. Was the big guy up front? No. Okay, so that's telling, because at the minute Haaland's got a little bit of a knock, and apparently he had a fever. So he came off a half-time in the Champions League, and he didn't even make the bench by the looks of it. So yeah, he's not well at the minute. I'm sure he'll be fine. And remember that he's not going to the World Cup, so he can have a couple of weeks off as well. But they are a different team without him, aren't they? They can't score as many goals. You won't know it because they won anyway. But, you know, who else do they have to go up front? They were resting Phil Foden as well. Yeah, they don't really have much in the way of a strong backup striker. So it'll be interesting to see if something happens to Haaland, like he gets tired from playing because he wants to play every game, doesn't he? To the end. I think he had a bit of a sulk for coming off early a couple of weeks ago. Not much, obviously, professional sulk. Yeah, he's just hungry, and that, he's not played at the demands of the Premier League. That, he's going to get burnt out, so he'll have a couple of weeks off for the World Cup. And he'll be fine, but if he were to get injured, I'm not entirely sure how Man City would cope. It's an interesting one. Okay, and Sunday results. Man United managing to stop West Ham's recent resurgence with a goal for Marcus Rashford. Is it something like his 100th goal? Or his 100th home game? Oh, I can't remember. It was a particularly important goal in his career anyway, I remember that much. So yeah, 1-0 just. So it just goes to show that West Ham is still having a really good season after, if you just ignore their terrible start. So 1-0 to West Ham, and Arsenal just ripping Nottingham Forest apart. After they've improved in the last couple of weeks, I don't think I was expecting this result, especially as Arsenal drew with Southampton. So another goal for Martinelli, Reece Nelson with 2, Thomas Partey and Ødegaard with assists from Saka, Gabi Jesus with 2 assists, and an assist for Reece Nelson. So he had a really excellent game. 2 goals and an assist. I didn't see this match. Who did they start? Just their usual team. And not Forest. Yeah, they're starting to rest the Welshman a little bit, but as long as he doesn't get injured, Brennan Johnson, before the World Cup, I'm okay. Yeah, okay. So that's 5-0. Let's take a look at the table then. So Arsenal are first by 2 points. Man City are hunting them for top spot. Brilliant that, Arsenal is still there. I'm really happy. Tottenham in third. We'll talk about that in a second. Newcastle fourth. We'll also talk about that in a second. Man United back up to 5th. Chelsea down at their expense to 6th. Fulham in 7th. Brighton in 8th. Liverpool down to 9th. Crystal Palace 10th. They just yo-yo whenever they've got a home match. Brentford 11th. Everton 12th. West Ham just slumping slightly to 13th. Bournemouth 14th. Leeds up to 15th. Aston Villa 16th. Southampton 17th. Leicester back down into the relegation zone 18th. Wolves in 19th, and Nottingham Forest down in 20th. So I'm getting less worried about Leicester. I think that they have probably got enough to pull them out of this. But I'm a little bit worried about Aston Villa now. Southampton, I was anyway. And Wolves, they just cannot score. I watched the game that they played against. Who did they play last week and they lost 4-0? Was it Leicester? No, maybe it was Leicester. And Leicester had 5 shots on goal and scored 4 goals. Wolves were at the point where they were stood in front of an open goal, shot, and then it hit a defender's leg and went off for a corner. It was just incredible. It was like they cannot pay to put the ball into the back of the net. Absolutely shocking. Okay, let's discuss Newcastle briefly. I think they could get Champions League football. I think worst case scenario, they get conference, but I think on their current form, with the positivity at the club, the money to dip into the transfer, to get some people in the transfer window, and the sensible approach. They haven't bought any superstars that are going to have a strop and demand that they get more money, or so-and-so has to leave, or they have to change the manager. They're doing things slow and steady, and they've got an excellent manager, really good players, just good, not like, world-class, totally outstanding. Just really above average, high-quality players. And, I think they're going to have a good season. Spurs, isn't it funny, like I always talk about, oh, Spurs didn't do that well, Spurs playing negatively, Spurs this, Spurs that, but they're in third. So I think the concern that they have is that all their wins have come against teams in the bottom half of the league, and all their losses against those in the top half. So when it comes to the fact they've played half the games, they should only be about halfway up the table. So is it an inflated position they're in because of the fixture list that they've had? Or is their football just too negative and they don't look like they're enjoying themselves the minute, do they? Especially Harry Kane, he looks miserable, and I think I read somewhere that he has halted contract talks with Spurs, so he's thinking again, I'm not going to win anything playing like this. Do I have to go somewhere else? But they're doing okay in the Champions League, so we'll see. Time will tell. What do you think? Let me know, and I hope you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you again really soon, okay?